Hello guys, Matty from Elemental Magic here, and I'm here in my hotel room. It's the night before the RPTQ, just having a beer, and I thought, why wait till tomorrow to give you guys information on the Pillars of Sealed? Some of you are going to have PTQs, sealed events coming up, so I might as well give the information now, and I thought I'd rather upload it before I have to go. Maybe you guys see I've had a bit of a trim, bit of a beard trim up. Thought I'd at least look my best for the competition tomorrow. And what I want to take you guys through today is what I'm going to work with for my sealed tournament. The Pillars of AKH Sealed. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through, I've got 9 points here to cover off on. So it's going to be a bit of a lengthy video. The first one is features of the format. So you know we've got cycling and we've got embalm. Cycling is a mana screw fixer. So in draft, when you're not hitting your land drops, you're not curving out correctly, you're going to want to cycle to get your land drops. We're going to see, this is actually a bit different in sealed. A lot of things I'm going to talk about here, you can understand, is sealed doesn't always, the things in draft don't always translate across to sealed. So it's cycling, that's a mana screw fixer. We'll always be hitting our land drops. Got embalm. Embalm's a flood fixer. It gives you something to do with your mana, even if you're flooding out, because you've cast the creature, say, early on turn 3 or 4, and now you're drawing more lands. You might only have turn 7, you might have just, like say turn 7, you've ripped a 2-drop off the top of your deck, oh great, a 2-drop when I've got 7 mana. But you can play the 2-drop and you can embalm with the other 5 mana, you can embalm your Unwavering Initiate, maybe you tap out the 7 mana, embalm your Avian Initiate, and get back to hitting them in the air. So embalm is a good mana sink. Another feature of this sealed format in AKH is that we have good top end at the low rarity. I'm talking your Desert Ceradons, your River Serpents, a few of the uncommon ones like your larger Drakes, things like that. These are all common to uncommon level rarity, and they're very, very good top end. They form great top end for decks. If you can think back to Brian Brown-Duin's ridiculous 15-0 sealed run at, I can't remember what Grand Prix it was, but it was this year. Think back to that. All he was doing was he had like an Archfiend and Ifnir, okay? That was his biggest bomb in the deck, and a lay claim. But outside of those 2 cards, he just had a bunch of cheap kind of just common and uncommon level flyers in blue, and he was just whacking a cartouche of ambition on them to give them lifelink and essentially make your own Baneslayer Angels, what he was calling it. So a lot of good top end at low rarity. The other another feature is that of sealed is that unlike draft, and this is a big difference from draft, is that card advantage matters a lot more. I'm talking like you can get card advantage from lots of different sources. You get your embalm effects, obviously, which is 2 uses out of 1 card. You've got looting effects, which is card selection. Draw spells are much better. Your hyperglyphic illuminations, you're not really wanting to cycle them. You mostly want to be casting them and drawing 2 in sealed. Obviously, your trial and cartouche combinations. Bouncing trials is always going to be powerful, always going to be very good. Likewise, in card advantage, you've also got certain cards that give you innate advantages, such as certain bomb rares, like you might have your Cruel Reality, your Sandworm Convergence. Sandworm's like you've drawn a 5/5 every turn and played it for free. Cruel Reality is like you've drawn a Trial Ambition every turn and played it for free. This is all card advantage stuff. That's what this is. So those card advantage effects obviously good top end and card advantage being a big part of the format leads to sealed being a lot slower and grindier than what draft ever is. We all know AKH draft's very aggressive. You want lots of 2-drops. People are getting Gus Walker out of existence. Red, white being premier colours, but that's not so much the case in sealed. So colours. Let's go on to colours then. What colours do I want to be in tomorrow? Well, I've sort of tiered the colours in my mind. The tier 1 to me is the Abzan colours. I'm talking your green, white and black. The reason for this is that green is the single colour that lets you play all your bomb rares. It lets you play all your best cards. You got one Gift of Paradise that lets you play any double coloured spell. Your cultivator, it's the 1 green 03 sack for 2 and a green. Go to land out of your deck. This is facilitating splashing, and I'll get more onto splashing next. White has a tremendous amount of depth, and black again has a tremendous amount of depth, not just in the removal available, but also in the in creatures. Black's creatures have really been impressive. The other, which it doesn't always have in a lot of limited formats. One thing I noticed about white and black too is those colours have the answers to deal with everything. You got your final reward. You've got your cast out. You have cast out as well. Like you have these cards that are again lower rarity but answer everything in the format. So tier 2, I'm putting red at tier 2, and tier 2 and 3 is kind of close, right? So tier 2 red. Red is just very, very all in on the aggression plan, which isn't great for sealed. It's great for draft. It's tier 1 for draft, but it's not tier 1 for sealed. I put it tier 2 because if you get a good red pool, if I get a good red pool tomorrow, I'm playing it. You're always going to play your best cards. I'm not saying don't play red. What I'm saying is it's lower. Your chances of getting a higher card quality in red is lower than possible, because to be a good aggressive deck, you need between 8 and 9 1 to 2 drops. You're not getting that out of a sealed pool often. You will sometimes, but not often. Tier 3 I put blue into tier 3, and really the only reason I've done that is because it just lacks depth. It'll be rare that blue is your primary colour. It will often be. I like playing with blue and sealed. I think I'd actually I preference blue a lot, but blue's often going to be a splash or it's going to be a support colour. It's not always going to be your main colour. Again, these are all general guideline things. These are not hard and fast rules. It takes me on to the third point that I really want to talk about is splashing. So generally I don't like splashing in draft. I like to stay 2 colour if I can. But for sealed tomorrow, I think, and for sealed, for everyone who's playing sealed, you really need to widen your range on the issue of splashing. Consider, it's a slower format. So what does sealed depend on? Well, obviously it depends on what fixing you get in your pool, what availability of fixing there is. But there's been podcasts from limited resources, as well as a lot of articles coming out that are talking about how you can be open in sealed to playing 3 to 5 colours, no worries. I think it's totally possible, given the correct fixing. Does this mean that you should aim for it? No, it doesn't. You always play to what your pool gives you. Having said that, I'd say 2 to 2.5, like 2.5 colours is the norm for sealed decks in AKH. Most of the time you're playing 2 colours and you're playing a nice splash, just for some extra playables, extra high power cards, and you're not often getting, you're not really going to get punished for that. Just a note on splashing, you only want to splash cards that are always powerful. So like Glorybringer, always powerful. You cast it on turn 5, you cast it on turn 10, it's always going to be good. It's never bad. you're playing that card. That's a worthy splash. Yes, it's red, but Amonkhet does have the fixing to allow for that. Cards that are situational or cards that you need to play early in order to be effective are not splashable. So when I say early, I mean sort of turn 3 or earlier. Having said that, splashing Wandering Death is totally acceptable, because that's a card that you play late after you've loaded up the graveyard. You don't play that card to curve, but also it has colorless cycling, which makes it always good, always relevant at every point. Like, you just cycle it away and draw a card. Likewise, some of the gods, let's say Rowanus, because it's only a 3-drop. Splashing a Rowanus, you're not going to play this on curve very easily, but he's as good on turn 10 as he is on turn 3, so it's a fine splash to make. So on that note, when we're talking about splashing, it leads me on to the 4th point, which is cards that facilitate you getting to play your best cards get better. Because sealed pools are always kind of janky, well, often are, unless you're a bit lucky. A lot of cards that we don't look at for draft become a lot better in sealed. So I'm looking at my Gift of Paradise, the Cultivator I talked about earlier, Evolving Wild, Cycling Lands. Painted Bluff is nowhere near as bad as people say. It actually is much better than you think. A turn 5 cast out is just as good as a turn 4 cast out with Painted Bluffs. A good example for Gift of Paradise, if you have 2 of those in your pool, you can play 5 colours, almost no worries. Double coloured cards, you can cast them all, come off Gift of Paradise. Lay Claim, great example of a double coloured card, extremely high ceiling, can be cycled away for 2. What a great card to splash, even though you wouldn't necessarily consider a blue or a double coloured spell in this case to be a splashable feature of the format. It is really. So cards that I think there's other thing. That takes me on to like what cards then have become better in sealed as opposed to draft. So we're moving away from draft, we're moving to this grindier, slower format. Well, I'm talking about things like your Sandworm Convergence, Cruel Reality, Bounty of Luxor, Oracle's Vault, Drake Haven. If you can support it, obviously you need the cycling to support Drake Haven. That's a bit more situational, that card. But the thing all these cards have in common is they're generating a form of virtual card advantage, which ties back to the pillar of card advantage being a key to this format. So I'm looking, if I'm opening Cruel Reality, Sandworm Convergence, I'm super happy to play these cards. I'm playing them and I'm splashing them into whatever deck I can. They're just that powerful, and it forces your opponent to answer them all. The big key to these cards, they all produce inevitability. Inevitability is huge in this format. Because the games go late, you just want it to be able to have a card that says, well, it will win the game eventually. In 10 turns, if it's just there, it's just going to keep winning the game. You can't roadblock it. You can't. It's costing you more resources than it costs me to keep it on the field, and I'm going to grind you out with it. So if you're setting up to go late, which I would be looking for in my pool, and if you do get a pool that can go late, if you're looking for that, then you need to have payoffs. Like, for example, I'm probably not cycling my Desert Ceradon on turn 2 or 3 if I've got 2 lands in hand. I'd rather just play a 6/4 on turn 6, just to have it as a bomb. So cycling away your threats, not as common and not as necessary in sealed as it is, say, in draft, where draft you do want to curve out, and if you don't play a 2-drop on turn 2, you feel pretty dead. One thing that was talked about in limited resources this week is that you can. One of the players that LSV has been getting his information from, who's played over 100 limited, sealed limited, matches was saying that he doesn't want more than 3 to 4 cards that are less than 3 mana in his deck. He's playing 3 mana plus cards all the time, because a lot of time you might play this aggressive deck, and if it's not if it's not busted, if it's not the nuts, if you haven't got a really good aggressive pool, then you'll get them to 10. You'll knock them down to 10 probably, maybe knock them down to 5, but then they're just going to stabilize, and they're going to start taking over the game with these bigger, grindier cards, and that's just kind of what Sealed is. So other cards that get better. So we've got, obviously, if we're talking these big bombs get better, that has to change what answers get better. So I like cards like Unburden, cards like Lay Bare the Heart. These are cards that I would hold late. I'd hold them late and wait till like turns 4, 5, or 6. Whenever you think their bomb is going to come down. If they've got Glorybringer, you play it on turn 4, right? If they've got Lay Claim, you play it on like turn 5 or 6. So you're looking to catch those cards before they get a chance to. Unburden is also amazing in the format, because if I unburden you and you discard 2 lands, in draft I might feel like a bit of a dope. But in Sealed, because everyone's playing these bigger, slower decks, they need both mana and cards. They need mana and payoffs to actually facilitate what they're going to do. So I would definitely consider, like, when they're discarding, if they discard 2 lands in Sealed, I'm not actually upset, because I'm thinking, hold on a minute. If they're playing a Sandworm Convergence, maybe they're not going to play it on turn 7 now. Maybe they're not playing it until turn 10, because they've got to hit land drops as well as draw the Sandworm Convergence in their deck. I like cards like Forsake the Worldly, Dissenters Deliverance, cards that can blow up, things like Oracle's Vault. I mean, Forsake's obviously a lot more flexible. It's taking out Bounty of Luxars, taking out Cruel Realities, taking out Sandworm Convergences. It's taking out Drake Havens. It's taking out a lot of those problematic permanents that you wouldn't see in draft because they're too clunky and slow. But you'll see them in Sealed, because Sealed is clunky and slow. These cards that are answers to top end have become much better. So you kind of want to be the guy that can have the last say, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is, like, say I'm playing a Sandworm Convergence, and I think to myself, yes, Sandworm Convergence is going to get you. But when I'm building my deck, I'm also thinking, but how do they stop me from winning? I play Sandworm Convergence, how do they beat me? There's not a lot of decks, there's not a lot of cards in Sealed, in Armament Cat Sealed, that beats Sandworm Convergence. I'm just using it because it's such a big bomb. A card that will beat it, Lay Claim. I'll take your Sandworm Convergence, I'll take your rare with my uncommon, and I'll be the one making worms, and I'll win from Sandworm Convergence. So as a Sandworm Convergence player, I want to think ahead of the clock and say, well, maybe splashing a Lay Claim into my... maybe splashing a Forsake the Worldly to take out any Lay Claims is actually a viable thing. At least from the sideboard. At least. Possibly mainboard. But mostly, you want to be able to think ahead of the curve as much as possible. You want to be able to be the person with the last answer, if that makes sense. He tries to answer, you answer right back. Deck archetypes. There's 3 main deck archetypes. 3 main deck archetypes that I've sort of identified in the format. You've got the long game decks. They're playing a lot of late bombs. They're looking for board stall to bomb. Answer plus board stalls to bombs. That's what their game strategy is. You've got aggro. I've said aggro is not good, but the times when it's good, it's insane. It's rare to get a pool with aggro. You need 8 to 9 1 to 2 drops, and they need to be good. You know, like I'm talking like if you're in red, you're not playing the 1/4 with prowess. You're playing like the 2/1 that turns into a 3/3 with trample. You want more of that action going on. Just be aware though, you need cards to get these. You need a good combination of cards like pump spells, things like that to get these cards through. So otherwise, you're just going to get brick walled eventually. The third deck archetype is what I call the Gift of Paradise Green. This is the deck that I most want to be in. I love Gift of Paradise Green as the main sealed deck of my choice. The reason being, it lets me play all my bombs. It lets me play every bomb that I open. Everything. So they're usually 3, 4, 5 color decks. They're good stuff decks. They have higher card quality than the other two archetypes. If the mana works out. The core thing being if the mana works out. They have to take the fixing. So they have a weaker early game, a sort of a soft mid game, but they're taking advantage of the fact that the format's slow and they're playing their best cards in their pool, which is sort of a key thing to Sealed in general. The other thing is, what I've already touched on this. You need to change your thoughts from the way draft plays. Try to think long-term leveling. So when I say that, I mean like, again, what I was saying, having the last answer. If they have an answer to your Sandworm convergence, do you have a reply? If they have lay claim, do you have a Forsake the Worldly? Do you have ways to backwards and forwards? And you're not cycling these away, obviously, you're holding them for the late game. Curve are not as important. It's not as important to curve out in Sealed as it is to have your mana working, to have your best bombs, and to be able to play them. A few additional points, and this is the last of what I wanted to talk about, is that just some general points for playing Sealed, and this is kind of across multiple formats, not just Armankhet Sealed, like any Sealed for the future as well. You always want to play your best cards. You want to try your best to be able to play your best cards. You want to build this for a slower format. Not all Sealeds are like this, but for Armankhet, build for a slower format. Aggressively splash. Be open to splashing in Sealed, in Armankhet Sealed. It's that powerful. It allows you to play more of your good cards. Make a plan for the late game and have answers to fight against their late game. Know that the threats you're fighting are different from draft. You're not taking I'm probably not taking Splendid Agony as highly as I'm taking Final Reward. Splendid Agony blows out all of the aggro decks, but if there's not many aggro decks, I'm probably sideboarding it for Sealed. Inevitability matters, repeatable effects matter, card advantage, things like any engines you can get going, any any engines that just can grind you out more cards, anything like that's just like the Second Sun, Return of the Second Sun, that's just like a one card combo, right? That's one card engine. That's win the game. I believe that's probably one of the best rares for Sealed, and absolutely incredibly good rare for Sealed. And yeah, remember, curving out not as important. You don't have to stress about your curve anymore. If it looks kind of wonky, like you got like two drops, and then that's it. Yeah, that's low, but it's not a big deal. I probably want to be playing 17 lands for most of my decks. 17 lands allows not just me to hit my land drops. It's not as simple as that. It's also, I can play more, I can splash more by adding more lands of different colors into the deck. So they're the points, they're my actual notes, like that's what I'm using. They're notes that I've taken for Armankhet Sealed. That's what I'm taking into the RPTQ tomorrow. I'm excited to play, it's going to be sick. And yeah, I hope this helps you guys out, whether you're grinding online or go and do whatever you want. I'll definitely be doing some more Sealed. I want to bring you guys some Sealed content when I get home, back to Sydney. I'll bring you guys some Sealed content in the lead up to Grand Prix Sydney, which is going to be a blast. And like, I'll be there. I hope you guys are going to come. All the best. Good night.